glasses on so I don't get the screen glare. Today's July 9, it's 8:50 in the morning, and we're having our rotten seasonable weather. Israel, contrary to what most people don't know, is the weather here is simply terrible. It's 82 degrees now, we'll be at about 94, 95, low is 75. Just a miserable day, 63% humidity, so it's enough to make you uncomfortable. It's just the way it is until probably October. It's terrible. Many of the Israelis, if they can get a month off, which a lot of them have a month vacation time, they take it in August because it's the worst month, they just want to escape. A lot of others take their vacations over Pesach because they don't want to eat the unleavened bread, and they take off at other times of the holidays, and they go to Europe and different places, America, I suppose, and whatever. So we'll have a miserable day today. What are you going to do? That's Israel. It's an extremely hard place to live. Can you find other hard places to live? I guess you could. You know, you really could, but this place is pretty hard. You get bad weather, although we don't get blizzards. That's worse. I grew up in New York, and blizzards are the worst. You know, there's a lot of, look, the world's under a curse, basically. And everything's bad in the whole world. The whole creation groaneth. The animals have it horrible, but they don't know any better, so they don't, know what to do. They don't read the Bible or anything, so they just groan. It's just a miserable existence for them, poor things. And everybody. Nobody's doing well here. Nobody's flourishing. The S-bots look like they are, but they have no peace, no joy, no faith, no anything. All they got is their money, and they're fearful of good leaving. I knew some people years ago, they were friendly with very rich people, and they used to get up at night and change the bedding because they'd sweat so much because they were afraid of losing their money. It's like the old joke Jack Benny used to tell. He's an old Jewish comedian. He was a gay guy, I believe, and some robber jumps out and points a gun at him and says, "Your money or your life," and he says, "Wait a minute, let me think." And that's what you get. They don't know. What they got this, and we know what's going to happen to their wealth. It's all going to be gone. Once these countries start to fail, the currencies will be worthless. Like, what does worthless mean? You go to the store and you want to buy a week's worth of groceries, you'll have to bring a suitcase. The countries will just keep printing money, and then eventually people won't even want to take their own national currency. They'll want to barter or take a stronger currency or whatever, It's going to happen. It's in the Bible. Now, the people that read the Bible, that understand the Bible like us, are expecting an annihilation of the nations that the Israelites were scattered to in Jeremiah 30, specifically verse 11. They're also expecting Jacob's trouble, but great is Jacob's trouble, but he gets saved out of it. That's Zechariah 12. It's not Gog and Magog. They don't get saved out of Gog and Magog. It's got to be Zechariah 12. And that has the two witnesses burning up the enemies on the right hand and the left hand. This is all foreign to the church. The church has another gospel, and they don't know what the heck's going on. They don't know anything. They're blind. They're called, but not chosen. If they were chosen, they would realize that there's a problem with the church doctrines, and they'd leave. But they don't, because it's satisfying to them. They can't understand the scriptures. So they use study Bibles, commentaries, listen to prophecy teachers, pastors that explain it to them, but they explain it to them incorrectly to snare them, and they don't get that. or they explain it to them incorrectly because they don't know any better. Their doctrine is the word's going to go forth from America or South Korea or someplace in the world and go to Israel. Well, it doesn't work that way. To the Jew first, then the Goyim. They don't get it right. To the Jew first, then the Greek. The Goyim are the lost tribes, basically. The Greek is not. So they just don't understand anything, okay? And they walk around in a delusional stupor, expecting things to happen that aren't going to happen. Will they wake up and come out of it? Guys, if they're the called, but not the chosen, they're not going to wake up out of it. Absolutely not. Ever. Okay? It's not going to happen. Now, some of them probably are the elect, and they're stuck in there, and they haven't been woken up yet. I'm guessing. I could be completely wrong, and that may not be the case. Because I know in the late 90s, there was a massive amount of people leaving the churches, and it was the saying was, "I'm called out from the church." That was the saying, and I had stuff posted on the internet in the 90s, big Bible studies explaining why the church isn't the church. I didn't do as good a job back then as I do today, but I did an okay job, I guess, because some people responded to it. And that Bible study was printed and distributed in many different continents. I guess someplace around 2000, 2001, it got taken off the internet because I lost my hosting. I think it did its job. I put it up probably around 96, something like that. Maybe 1995. I had a spiritual warfare section. I had a section on the church isn't the church, and I had some stuff with prophecy, but I didn't have all the insight and prophecy that I do today, not even close. So anyway, I just remember that. And, people were complaining to the various search engines because they talked about Satan. They were saying I was a satanic saith. You see, the S-bots fight you in the flesh. Complaining to Yahoo or somebody about your site is in the flesh, okay? We fight them in the spirit with spiritual warfare and prayer. They don't, they can pray all they want. Who they're going to pray to, what do I care? Pray. What doesn't mean it. So, it's hard for us because people around us, family, friends, neighbors, work people, they don't understand us because they're either like atheist or nothing, right? Or they're church, or they're in some other religion. They could be Buddha, Hindu, not Hindu, India. No, what's the word? They're Hindus, yeah, that's the word. They worship like the woman with 8 arms and 10,000 other gods or whatever they got. They could be communists, which is sort of like atheists. They could be Catholic, Christianity, Muslim. They could be many other religions too. But the big ones there's Catholicism and Churchianity, which is very much the same thing. And there's the Hindus, there's the Buddhists, there's the Muslims. And those are your big ones, really. And then there's, little ones like Baha'i and other things. But, they don't have a large following like Hare Krishna's another one. But they're not big. Jehovah's Witnesses, well, that's Churchianity. Mormons are Churchianity. Okay, it's all the same junks. The Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, the Catholics, the Assemblies of God, the Church of Christ, the Presbyterians, Episcopalians, Methodists, Buddha, Baptists, all of that. It's all the same stuff. It really is. It's the same as the Catholics. They're divisions. They have another Jesus. They have another gospel. They have another spirit, and they have deviations. But people think the Catholics are very different. They're not. I mean, they got little quirks. That's all. With the pray to Mary and what else they got? The Pope. But I mean, it's it's a little different, but it's still churchianity. I mean, the Mormons have their 12 apostles today. They elect them, I think. And they think Salt Lake is some special place, and they have doctrines about joining several states together to make a big fiefdom or something for the Mormon Church, and I don't know much about it. Years ago, when they took over some national parks, some Mormon guys, it was coming up, and I read about it, but they all went to jail. Nothing much happened with it. See, having a revolutionary type movement and not having enforcement, or lots of people willing to go to enforce what we want, is always going to fail. It's always going to fail. And the people don't just normally decide they're going to rally to the assistance of movements and stuff. Now, Israel's undergoing this right now with heavy protests over judicial reform, which is taking the power of the court away. Now, Netanyahu's latest is to pass a law setting aside the Supreme Court's ability to use unreasonableness as a reason to strike down laws or things the governments do that not necessarily is a law. So one of the things that they did is they said Aryeh Deri can't be a minister of health and a minister of the Department of Interior because he's got 3 criminal convictions, and his third one for avoiding jail time, he agreed to stay out of public life, in other words, not hold office. And then he goes ahead and violates that in a brief period of time later and says he's going to hold 2 offices, Minister of the Health and Minister of the Interior. And Netanyahu appoints him. And they said, no, that's not reasonable, he has to leave, and they demanded Netanyahu fire him. Well, what I think the court probably learned from that is if they do this again, they're going to make the person plead guilty, get a plea bargain that's going to come in the order, in the form of an order from the court. That prison sentence will be suspended, but this person has to stay out of public life. And if this person goes back into public life, the prison sentence is reinstated. That's the only way you're going to get it done. So the person can't play games with Netanyahu that way. There was something near Gaza in that area, the Negev, where they were going to reinforce some school rooms against bombs and missiles, I should say. And they weren't going to do others. And I don't know what the criteria was, but the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. There's reasonableness missing because you're leaving a certain amount of schoolrooms exposed and those kids can get killed. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it for all the schoolrooms. Now, what's so crazy about that? And then they had other things where they corrected the government, not very frequently. So the reason that their bowels are in an uproar about the court is because what they did to Aryeh Deri. He's one of these ultra-Orthodox, they want this bum who's been in prison for corruption with the Ministry of the Interior, gets out of prison, gets into another problem with the Ministry of Interior and corruption and tax evasion, and pleads guilty, and then Netanyahu makes him the head of the Ministry of Interior again. Twice this moron got criminal charges against him, went to jail for corruption of Ministry of Interior, and this other jackass Netanyahu puts him back in office. They throw him out, and now Netanyahu's trying to get a law passed to bypass the Supreme Court and reinsert Aryeh Deri into office. This is what's going on in Israel. I think we've probably reached the end of the line with the democracy. The democracy in Israel has reached a level of comedy. While I say Netanyahu is the curse of Israel, it's also a joke. I mean, it's a joke what he's doing with judicial reform. It's to keep himself out of jail. What is the big deal about understanding that? Why don't they get out? They have mentioned it in the media, but why don't they really blast it in the media every day? You know? Now, the court and the Attorney General are scared of Netanyahu. By that, do I mean Netanyahu will kill them? No. What I think they're scared of is Netanyahu will definitely ruin them politically. That's how he works. I don't believe he goes around having people killed, but he will destroy them politically. He got, what's his name, Moshe Feiglin, destroyed that guy. That guy was a good leader. I mean, in the Knesset, for what you got to pick from, you know. He was pretty good. He had some good ideas, but Netanyahu just crushed him politically, you know. Just got rid of him. And he's done that to many people, and he has a big list of enemies. So this trial is still proceeding, and Milshan seemed to go back on his testimony, thus not really, his testimony is not so convicting of Netanyahu anymore. So he flip-flopped. Why he did that, I don't know. We could speculate political favors. I mean, you know, but we're speculating. We don't know why he flip-flopped. He did flip-flop. It was so weird. It looked just like an Elliot Ness Untouchable show. You know? Weird. So he flip-flopped. And now they're getting Milshan's former secretary, administrative assistant, or something like that. And she's becoming a witness. And she got threatened somebody threatened to kill her and her whole family. So I think they're protecting her. I'm not sure. They probably will. If the Israeli government is going to protect you, it's going to use Shin Bet. And if they're going to protect you, nothing's going to happen to you. They're very, very thorough. Very thorough. I think the Secret Service of America is pretty thorough too. But the Secret Service of America knows how to spend money like it's going out of style. I don't think Shin Bet throws money away like that, you know. But moving along, so the judicial reform is continuing. The protests are out there. I don't think the reason this thing is so bad to get rid of. I don't think it belongs in a court, in a Supreme Court. I really don't. But the reason it's happening is the court said it's not reasonable to have Aryeh Deri back in office. They didn't say he breached his commitment not to go back to public office. They should have. They didn't. They used reasonableness. And that's what Netanyahu wants to strike down. And he wants to make it a retroactive law. Now, the way it would work is they pass the law and they can't really make a retroactive law. You can't pass a law that says if your dog pees on somebody's car, you owe them $500,000 and say this went into effect in 1960. You can't do that. You can put it in effect today. So he puts it in effect today. Then he comes back and does some hocus pocus with the lawyers and reinstates R.E.A. Derry, which is a condition, I believe, of keeping his coalition together. He has to get Derry back in office. If his coalition falls apart, I'm sure he'll be gobbled up by the Supreme Court lickety split. Even if the bum becomes an acting prime minister, or what they call an interim or custodial prime minister waiting for the election, he'll still get gobbled up by them because his power is greatly diminished. And he's not allowed to initiate legal changes like, do a judicial reform, for instance. He couldn't do that. Not while he's interim prime minister. It's not allowed. That's on the books, so it could be struck. So we're putting up with all this stuff here, and it's crumbling. This government is like holding broken eggs, and it just keeps slipping through their fingers. It can't hold up. The democracy is going away in Israel. And do I hear anybody talk about that? No. But it's going away. In the Bible, it's gone. In the Old Testament, I'm not working out of the New Testament on this. I'm predominantly, exclusively, I'm going out and we look at Zechariah 12, look at Jeremiah 30, look at Ezekiel 34. It's gone. There's no democracy showing up anymore. And that's a sign of Hosea 6, 1 and 2, the 2,000-year punishment. 2 days, Peter said, a day is like 1,000 years unto the Lord, and 1,000 years like a day. So that's our 2,000-year punishment, and I would say once the democracy goes away, it's pretty much over, because then he runs Israel with the judges, the two witnesses, and they're not going to put up with the yoke around the neck internally from the democracy and externally from the nations of the world who don't serve God. And all that Israel's become is special interest groups and stuff, and you can't get things done without protexia, as they call it. You got to know somebody, and it's become a joke. I mean, the government in Israel, the democracy, literally is humorous. It's a comedy of errors. It's not funny because we live here and what's happening, but it's so ridiculous and so stupid. It's become a comedy of errors, and it's being run like a drug cartel country. Netanyahu, under 3 criminal cases with an active trial going on, is sitting as prime minister, passing a law to get this jailbird, 2 or 3 times convicted R.E.A. Derry back into office. It's a joke. It's like, would we be better off with Mo, Larry, and Curly, or Abbott and Costello? Probably. Just imagine Netanyahu go, yip, 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 like Mo and the Three Stooges, or, hey, Abbott, hey, R.E.A. Derry, it's stupid. It's stupid, but the nations of the world are equally stupid. Look at Biden. He gets lost on the stage, and he's the president of the United States. He messes up teleprompters, says stuff that makes no sense on national TV, and they keep using them. It's the theater of the absurd. We're in the last days, the end times. Now, we're not at the end of the age yet, but we're getting there. And what are the things that are coming up on us in sequence? You're going to have another temple, and you're going to have the tabernacle. You're going to have Zechariah 12, where we get greater Israel back. Then you'll have the second Exodus. Your daughter of Babylon will be destroyed before the second Exodus, so there would be no second Exodus out of America. And you got 6.5 million known Judah in America. And what about the lost tribes? So that's an important piece there. And you're going to see the nations that the Israelites were scattered into get annihilated. And then after all of that, you'll see a falling away. It'll probably take years, as a guess, only. And that'll lead into Gog and Magog, which is the great day of the Lord, which is the entire book of Joel, which is Zechariah 14, which is Ezekiel chapters 8 through 11. Now, this is foreign to the church world what I told you. It's foreign to the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Catholics, the Evangelicals, the Pentecostals, the Episcopalians, Presbyterians, Methodists, the nominal, denominations as they call it. So foreign to them, they wouldn't know what the heck I was talking about. Yet you do, because it's in the scriptures. But they don't know, because they're called and they're not chosen. They reject the truth. Because you reject knowledge, I will reject you. That's the scripture. And they reject knowledge. And they don't know any better. You can't expect much from these people. Yeshua said there's two kinds of people. Those that for him and those that are against him. There's no neutral ground. He said that. And these people are not for him. Because, why? Well, I'll read you scripture. For, 2 John 1, verse 9. Whosoever transgresseth and abideth not in the doctrine of Christ hath not God. He that abideth in the doctrine of Christ, he hath both the Father and the Son. That's it. That's the reality, okay? If they're rubbing Buddha's belly, if they're worshiping the woman with the 8 arms and all these other religions, they don't have God. They have a God, but not the God. And a God who's not a real God. So, this is what really the reality of this mess is. And it's a mess. The world's a mess. Let's do our praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. There is no Messiah like Yeshua. There is no Messiah like Yeshua. There's 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 no Messiah like Yeshua. Let me take a quick look at the chat. The chat. Do I say, am I supposed to say live stream or am I supposed to say chat? I don't know. But it's the chat that I'm looking at. Okay, do a little bit of quick housekeeping here, and then we'll get on to talking about the war and cluster bombs and all the latest developments. Okay. Just a couple of minutes, not even minutes, probably quicker. So very quick. I'm going to do chat. That's my notification bell from the folder. see on a second or two here. Trying to decide if it's better to have spell correct turned off, because I guess spell correct makes so many errors, and it corrects errors too. So I put offering information up in the chat. I pinned it up, and it's in the chat highlighted in yellow. I put my email address in there, highlighted in yellow. In the description box under the video, there's my Patreon link for offerings and GoFundMe link for offerings, and at the very bottom I have a link to the email or the email address, so you can use that. Okay, so the cluster bombs, what's the deal with that? What is a cluster bomb? Well, there's different types, obviously. The type that appears to be the one given to Ukraine at this time that could expand is an artillery shell, or probably 155 millimeters, so it's probably a 5-inch. Let's see how many inches. 66. Very easy to do. Just go in there. Millimeter to IN. I do that, and it types meter to foot. How does it get to meter to foot when I put it in there? It's stupid. That's the spell. I got to figure out how to turn it off. It's driving me crazy. I think it's even artificial intelligence now. So we got it now, 155 millimeter. 6.1 inches. Okay, so it's a 6-inch artillery shell. Okay, so that's probably about something like this. Good size. Now, during World War II, the battleships had a 16-inch artillery shell, 16 inches. Other countries had 18 and I think even 19 and 20 inches, but 16 was huge. And it fired a 2,000-pound projectile full of high explosives for the World War II days. It would blow up almost the whole city block, one shell. Okay. And it had a huge range. They were able to push these things out to 25 miles, but they usually were using them at a lesser distance, but they could get out that far. If you hit a ship with one of those, I think the ship would be in really, really bad shape immediately. And they had 9 such guns. So when they were attacking another ship, they had 3 banks of 3. They used all 9 at a time. Boom, 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 boom. You know, since they were getting scared, they didn't want the other ship to hit them with their artillery. So for ship-to-ship warfare, a 6-inch gun isn't that big. I think they're normally going to use missiles, but I think the 8-inch gun was what was the lesser of the guns. I think they went 8 to 10 to 12. They had, over the years, different configurations. They were still using these battleships during Vietnam. They had all the analog computers in there, and they had missiles, and they had the guns and everything else. Okay, moving along. So the artillery shells are usually quite big, like, they could be like this, they could be, and they're big. So a cluster bomb has 88 little explosives in there the size of a hand grenade. Now the hand grenades today are pretty small. They're round like this. They're not that, old World War II kind that was like egg-shaped and had, like little boxes on it, you could say, like pieces of a chocolate bar that had the box cut, something like that. They call it a tablet, and they show the chocolate bars like that. I don't know, but that's not the correct word. But okay. So these are potent but small hand grenades, but they're not literally hand grenade. It's an explosive the size of a hand. Well, they say it's like a hand grenade, but it's different. Okay, it doesn't detonate like a hand grenade and so forth. So it's got to be different. And they have, I think, 88 or 83 in there. I think it was 88 in this one explosive. So this is a sophisticated artillery shell that travels, and how far does it go? The 155 millimeter gun with the right shells, which are usually going to be lighter with a high-powered explosive, can get out to 25 miles. But most of the time, they're going to be distancing these things at maybe 12, 14 miles. They don't like to go out that far with them, although they can, they don't. They, even 8 miles. They try to keep the stuff relatively close. They don't like to go that far. I guess they run into a lot of problems with windage and the weather, like rain and stuff like that. If you're taking a 12-mile shot, the artillery shell's in the air half as long as it would be on a 25-mile shot, right? So you're going to have a 50% less problem with windage moving the shell over. Now, you could compensate for windage, all right, but do you really know what the windage is 6 miles away? How do you measure that? Well, I mean, it's possible with computer technology and, internet and stuff like that, but, that might be one reason. The lack of accuracy could be another reason, and so forth. All right, moving along. These shells will explode in the air. So they probably have a timer or an altimeter on it, or both, or something, that tells the shell when to explode. Now, artillery shells going miles are not going to travel like a rifle bullet. They're going to have to arc those suckers. Okay, and the computers help them get there. Radar-controlled artillery they've had for ages. And computer-directed artillery for ages. So the shell will explode before it hits the ground. They could probably set it for surface explosion if they had a reason to do that. I don't know what the reason would be, but they could. And it could splay or spray these 88 little bombs, cluster bombs, over an area the size of a football field. So it's 4 times, the narrative from the American military is 4 times more effective than regular artillery. Because regular artillery is going to make a hole maybe 5 or 6 feet, 8 feet or something like that. It's not going to make a 50-foot hole or, something like that. It's going to make I don't know what the exact size of the hole is, but probably 6, 8 feet or something like that. And it's going to blow up people that are probably pretty close to it, maybe within 15, 25 feet. They'll catch shrapnel in the blast wave and they'll get busted up. Okay? So that's probably about it. Alright? Now, if the person's near the blast and they throw themselves flat on the ground and hold their military helmet on their head with their hands so it doesn't blow off, and they might just be shaken and 2 or 3 minutes later, they're okay. I mean, if they put their hands over their ears, it's going to mitigate the ear damage tremendously and stop the percussive effects in the brain and all that, But the ground's going to jar, the blast wave will hit them, the heat, and it's going to have issues, but they may have no damage because they land flat on the ground. They don't take any shrapnel, so they recover. But it certainly would be a bad experience. But moving ahead, So you could land with these cluster bombs, your shell, and miss by 100 feet and still create a lot of damage for your target 100 feet away. I expect these cluster bombs explode with a timer or something, or when they hit the ground or something like that. The Americans say that they have a dud ratio of 3% on these. So they have never really highly perfected these cluster bomb artillery shells. 3% is rather high. So if they're going to shoot 1,000 of these off in a month, you know, you're going to have, 30 failures. Now, these 30 failures, you've got to multiply by 88. So you have several hundred little hand grenade sized explosives laying around the countryside that didn't go off yet. And they could go off if an animal steps on it, or a kid picks it up, or a tractor or a vehicle or a bicycle rides over it, or something like that. Or it could just go off when an airplane flies over, or a train goes by, or anything. You don't know, or it may never go off. So that was what the Americans were saying was one of their big reasons for hesitancy. Now, America is not in the treaty to not use cluster bombs. They never signed such a treaty. Neither did Ukraine, neither did Russia, and Russia has been using cluster bombs. America has been shoveling artillery shells into Ukraine like it's going out of style. Giving them the cluster bombs gets a fourfold increase in the effectiveness. So basically the thought is they could use 25% or 1/4 of the amount of artillery shells they previously were using and get the same type of effects. But if they, use, them more effectively, and they get way more effective, use the same number of shells, they could actually start giving the Russians a real Excedrin headache and killing a lot of Russian soldiers, and Putin's drafting hundreds of thousands of them again. And you have to understand that the Americans and NATO understand there's so many people Putin could draft and get killed in Ukraine, and then people are going to want to hang Putin off the street now. Okay? I mean, let's picture the absurd. It's 2026 and 2 million people from Russian military got killed in Ukraine. You think that Putin's still going to be a contender to stay in office, or they're going to get rid of him? Get rid of him. Probably a military guy will do a coup and get rid of him, like what Wagner tried. They'll be sick of him. So, what is Putin's countermeasure to the cluster bomb? Well, he uses them himself. That's his countermeasure, but does he have any other countermeasure? No, he doesn't. What if Ukraine decides to take those cluster bombs and shoot them into cities and villages inside Russia? I don't think they'll do that. I think this thing has to be a military-only weapon. It can't be used against civilians. I don't think Ukraine's that stupid. No, they're not going to do it. What Ukraine really needs is them F-16s and equivalent fighter jets from the other countries in NATO. And I reckon they're going to have 200 or 300 of those before this is over. And Ukraine has numerous airstrips. I understand it's something like 20 or 30 airstrips. Probably 30. I was listening to a guy talk about this that can handle the F-16. So You know, in the old days, you look at the aircraft carriers in World War II with the propeller planes, right? They launched the plane. I don't think they catapulted them. They launched the plane, and after a few feet, the plane would just lift up. It didn't go to the end of the deck, go off, drop, and then take off. It would go, and it would just, boom, just lift off. They built the planes. My father was an aeronautical engineer during World War II, and he used to build model airplanes when I was small, made out of balsa wood, and we put paper on it and coat the paper with this stuff called dope. And we would put rubber band engines in them, great big rubber bands, and you twisted the propeller like 200 or 300 times, and then you let go, and it would take off. You couldn't control it, you know. So they got broken up a little bit, but he didn't mind repairing them. So they would take off and, you know, do stuff. They were a lot of fun. So he used to teach me about lift. And these planes that they used on the aircraft carriers had tremendous lift. So it wasn't hard to get them to come off the ground. Okay? Now, in World War II, they had 4-engine bombers, and those things had terrible lift because they had a crew, I don't know what they had, 8, 10 people in there, and they're heavy. Loads and loads of 50 caliber machine gun bullets because they would run 8 guns. So they would run a gun on the top, like in the middle of the plane. They'd run a gun on the belly of the plane at the bottom. They had a gun in the tail of the plane and a gun right in the nose of the plane. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and they had one inside the plane on each side. So it was 6 guns, wasn't it? That was it, yeah. It was 6 guns. And the bombers flew in a certain pattern that they worked out. So sometimes they'd send 75, 100, 200 bombers. I mean, the bombers to the Americans were disposable along with the crews, okay? And the bombers had no protection against any flak. The flak hit them, it hit them, you know. I think they, at one point, if they survived 25 missions, they got sent home to train other pilots or something. I don't remember. Maybe it was 100 missions. It probably varied based on the theater they were in and stuff like that. So it was real dangerous. I knew a guy that was flying in the bombers in Europe in World War II, and he told me they gave everybody a tankard of rum before they took off because everybody was so scared. Because, you know, you went out, maybe you were 60, 75, 150 bombers, and you knew 2, 3, 4 guys were going to have their planes blown up, not come home. Or maybe they hit the silk, as they called it, they parachuted out and they wound up in a POW camp. They could have got interrogated, or they could have got killed by the citizens of the country they were bombing, or just killed by soldiers who had no ability to take them in as prisoners, so just shot them, you know. They had a pistol, usually in a holster over here, a big deal. Or that might help them with a farmer or some citizen or something like that, or it could help them if they see 1 or 2 enemy soldiers at a checkpoint and they can't turn around, they got to walk over to the checkpoint when they get close. You know, these guys got big rifles, they can't manipulate them that quick. They could whip the gun out and shoot both of them. And, you know, they were probably better off with a gun than not having a gun, you know. So, in this formation, if a fighter jet came at the airplanes, the bombers, it would be facing typically 8 machine guns while it was passing close to the bombers based on this formation. And these machine gunners in the planes were very well trained. It was many weeks of training. I mean, they trained them in trap shooting. They took targets and towed them. They got trained at moving targets on the ground, moving targets in the air. They trained them with shotguns. They trained them with rifles. They trained them with these machine guns in the planes. They knew how to hit planes. These guys came out. They knew how to shoot. They weren't fooling around. And they had a lot of ammo. These planes were heavy, and plus the bombs. So they had trouble getting them up. But once they got the target and they dropped the bombs, well, then it was easier. They probably flew faster, probably another 50 miles an hour or something, or 30 miles an hour faster, and then they had easy lift. But some of the planes just had really good lift. So the F-16 is not such great in the lift department, so it needs a pretty substantial runway. The F-16 can be loaded with missiles and bombs and all this stuff. And it can have fuel tanks, extra tanks, and go longer distances. And it's got electronic countermeasures, and it's got a lot of things going for it, okay? And it's not ghastly expensive like an F-35. So it's a popular plane, and there's equivalents in the European NATO countries that they're giving over to Ukraine. And that is going to give them a real air force. 200-300 fighters and bombers, well, they're getting fighters here, is a real aircraft, a real air force, and they're going to shoot rockets and missiles and drop bombs and strafe the Russian troops. They're going to try to give Putin an extremely high death rate. So the body bags are going to be coming back to Moscow, and the people in Russia are going to get pretty sick and tired of this, if not already. Think back to Vietnam. Vietnam casualty and death rate over the years wasn't as bad as what I think Putin already experienced after a year and a half. So Putin got a problem there. I don't think it's that much more time till the aircraft starts showing up in Russia. Maybe as little as 6 or 8 weeks, 12 weeks would be on the outside, and the pilots are being trained already in the other countries. So what they're probably doing is taking Ukrainian pilots that were trained on some older aircraft and upgrading them to these new ones. But it takes time. They got to learn the weapon systems. They got to learn how to drop bombs and shoot the missiles and use the it's probably, I would say they're running about 2 or 3 months on this. It takes time. When they get them, is Russia going to shoot some of them down? Oh, undoubtedly. But not that much, not enough. And they're going to destroy Russian troops like it's going out of style. Chinese troops are in Ukraine now. They're there. And what are they doing? They're not forming battalions and fighting yet. They're filming the fighting. Why would they film the fighting? Why? What in God's green earth are they doing? They're making war training films for the Chinese soldiers. They're filming the actual combat. They're sending the film back to China, who's editing it and narrating it and teaching their soldiers what the Ukrainian, how the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian soldiers are fighting, and how the Russians are fighting. Now, they're not going to show them tons of Russians getting killed to break their morale. So the people, the Chinese people, are getting ready to send soldiers into Russia. As I told you yesterday, the gold-backed BRICS trading currency is the war drum of war drums. Short of invading or attacking the United States, this will provoke the United States to war quicker than anything else. The United States runs around, and it's the currency of the world, and they print all they want, and they buy all the weapons they want. Now, how could the United States have turned into the hammer of the whole earth and the great voice, as per Jeremiah 50:51, without the ability to have unlimited money? That's why they floated the dollar in '73 and took it away from silver. It used to be, when I was in college and graduate school, your dollar bill said silver certificate. You can go to any Federal Reserve bank and say, give me the silver, and they'd give you a silver dollar. When kids got bar mitzvah, the typical gift that a lot of people gave was 13 silver dollars. Now, was that a lot of money, back then? Well, it was a heck of a lot more than it is today, but it wasn't that much money. So we had that went away, and America could just print whatever it wanted. Well, I mean, they're not supposed to. There increases the debt load on the public and stuff like that. They seem to freely do it. And then there's been so many scandals over history where billions of dollars turn up missing in the Department of Defense and this and that. And I don't ever know how the outcome of those is. Do they ever resolve it? I don't know. Probably. Who knows? If they resolve it or they don't, I don't know. I haven't read stories like that in a long time, but I used to read them over the years. They were pretty common. But it could be just people wanted to stir the pot. They resolved it. I don't know. They probably resolved it. They're not going to let people walk away with billions of dollars. So, if this goes on, the BRICS countries are the four founders, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Although these people don't get along with each other in such a great way, especially China and India. But then they took South Africa in, which is not a strong nation at all. It has a lot of raw materials, copper, iron, this kind of stuff. And it has agriculture, and it has fishing. It's got a terrible government over there. They're completely hate Israel and anti-Semitic, as I know it, and they're discriminatory, and it's a lot of problems over there. A lot of problems. They used to have their own little haven. If you go back to the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, I think. They had their own little haven. They were pretty much an isolationist country. They didn't get involved in fighting anywhere around the world. They weren't doing that. they had a reasonably decent currency, and they had a lot of mining. They mined many things, gold, silver, all kind of copper, and, iron, and they grew crops, and the kids would go to school and study mining and agriculture. And they didn't do a lot of industrial production, but they made things. They were smart people. They had a racist mentality for sure. They didn't practice gun control. The people had all kinds of guns, machine guns and stuff, And they lived well. They had, we had a relative in the family that lived there. They had a shoe factory. My uncle went to visit them. They got out of Europe. I don't know if it was before World War I. I think it was before World War I. And they went there. They were making shoes, so labor was cheap with them. And they lived in a house, and they had, modest amount of servants. They didn't have 8 or anything. They probably had, 2 or 3. They had a maid. They had somebody who do cooking, somebody who take care of the grounds. And, they didn't have a lot of, maybe somebody to clean the house during the day. They didn't have a lot of, that kind of thing. They had some servants. And they had plenty of good, cheap food. They had farms that were doing well. And they didn't get entangled in, other countries' matters. And they were very discriminatory towards the black people, and they got an uprising, and eventually they lost the control of the government. So I think they're making it by selling their natural resources off, But they are attempting to, or they are confiscating farmland from the whites, and, a lot of problems over there, a lot of problems. And there's a lot of whites that are still living there. So I don't completely understand the situation. But I do know they dislike Israel strongly, they're not totally Jewish and stuff like that. I had no intention of going there to live or anything like that. I had no reason to. But it was a really kind of a well-kept, secret place to go if you were looking for a place to live, after World War II or something like that. You could, and they didn't really get caught up in World War II either. So anyway. So China seems to be getting ready to move and help Russia. China and Russia are both friendly with Iran, and Iran found a niche. To help China, they could ship oil to China at sweetheart prices, like $40, $50 a barrel or something, right? Still make a profit and become great friends of China. So China is building infrastructure in Iran, and they probably are going to have soldiers there to protect that infrastructure, or already do. And Iran is selling China drones, 15,000 of them. And they're selling thousands of them to Russia, but they're really trading them for aircraft, fighter jets. I don't think the Russian fighter jets are much match for the NATO jets, honestly. But Iran's going to very shortly have a dangerous arsenal of fighter jets, which is problematic. I think they're getting 25. Are they going to be able to utilize these to attack Israel? No, they're not going to be able to reach here. They'd have to have tankers, and we would spot them long before, and they would get shut down over Iraq or Syria. They'd never get close. They wouldn't make it. I wouldn't worry about that. That's not a reasonable thing to worry about. They're not going to get that far. All right. It's mostly going to be used as a deterrent to fight off or deter an attack on the uranium homeland. They might use them occasionally to buzz merchant marine vessels they want to harass and board. So they have 2 fighter jets fly low over the boat, which sends a strong warning to the boat that they're going to sink the boat if they don't cooperate. So Iran is still interested in confiscating boats, and stealing the cargo, and capturing the crews. Who knows what they do. They're a wacko country. They don't operate like other countries. They're nuts. Okay? America is having trouble in Syria with Russians behaving inappropriately towards the American drones and other aircraft. And the Americans are now talking about it's time to get rid of Bashar Assad, which means to get rid of Russia. So the question is, if they get rid of Bashar Assad, who they're going to put in his place, and how will that person respond towards Russia and Iran? What they want to do to stabilize the area is have the new replacement for Bashar Assad throw the Iranians and the Russians out to restore what they would say peace and stability in the area. They don't want to see these foreign countries start a war with Israel, because every time that happens, Israel wins and grabs more territory and fulfills Bible prophecy, and the gods of the dead pull their hair out. So they don't want to see other countries attack Israel. That's a hard concept to understand that I just gave you, but if they wanted to see it, they would do it, but they're not doing it. They tricked Israel into giving land back. Israel gave Gaza back, Israel gave the Sinai Peninsula back, and they want Israel to give the West Bank back now, but it doesn't seem to be working. So that way they're in the clear of the nations. They get Israel to voluntarily give it back, and they get Israel in trouble with God over that, and so forth. And that's what happens when you have an ungodly government running Israel. But this time, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. They're not hardly moving in any direction to give the West Bank back. They've learned with giving Gaza back what a joke it is to do so. It's nonsense. It just gets abuse. They turned Gaza into a military base. What good did it do? No good. So the cluster bomb, is that going to get Putin crazy? No. Is that going to get Putin upset? Very. What will he do? Use more cluster bombs against Ukraine. That's all that's going to do. That's it. Is the United States going to go nuts over this trading currency gold back? Oh yeah. It's not going to be currency that people put in their wallets and their purses. It's not going to really have a paper element, or they might print pieces of paper that represent, like, $10,000 or brick dollars, 10,000, 100,000, a million, so they could easily be used for interbank transactions. America used to do that. America had $100,000 bills, gold certificate no less. They had 100,000 went to, I think it was 10,000, then 5,000, then 1,000. They might have had a 50,000, but I don't remember it. You can look at pictures of these in Google. Now, they didn't let anybody have these bills except the $1,000 bill. Wasn't distributed to the public. It only stayed with the bank, and the banks used it to balance their books and the bank transfers. So they would have an armored car, bring $10 million over to another bank. 10 $100,000 bills was $1 million, so 100 of those was 10 million. You know, they put it in a little envelope or a little box and transport it without having, you know, big suitcases and trunks full of small denomination bills. So it was easier to conduct interbank transfers that way. Moving along, America has to stop this. They're trying to suck India out of this. Because India is a big economic power in the BRICS. If they pull India out of it, what it leaves them with is South Africa, Russia, and China, which are all renegade states. But by association, India is becoming a renegade state. They're dancing with China, they're dancing with Russia. Okay? So they want to walk on both sides of the fence. And how does that work? It doesn't, but India doesn't know that. So America patiently is trying to. And why are the leaders of America patient? Well, I'll tell you why. They have multiple mansions, multiple yachts, many servants, many people to take care of them, many businesses, and, you know, they don't want for anything, okay? If they want a Rolls Royce, they pick up the phone and get a Rolls Royce. If they want another jet, they pick up the phone and get a jet, okay? They don't need anything. They have it all, okay? So when you're that way, it's easy to be patient, okay? They just want to keep what they have. They don't want to go into wars. They want to keep what they have. So they try to walk softly and gently. But what BRICS did is going to devastate them, because BRICS is trying to introduce 19 more people into BRICS. You know, countries that are, you know, like Pakistan, Algeria, those are not, you know, first-line countries, and then the UAE and Saudi Arabia. So I think the BRICS is going to turn into a NATO at the same time, but they're not talking about it, but it will. They're going to come out and they're going to tell their people, look, they're going to start with just financial, of course, because nobody's going to jump in without that. And then they're going to be suffering under America's, you know, pushing them around, and they're not going to like it. And they're going to say, we got to form our own BRICS NATO, and we'll take care of America instead of America taking care of us. So they form themselves a big, massive army and attack America, which is Jeremiah 50:51, Isaiah 47. America won't see it coming. America will not let them peacefully just go do this gold-backed trading currency. And they're also laying fiber optic cable, they're saying, to have communication securely amongst themselves. And they're right. But what they're doing is they're setting up a SWIFT system, which is the interbank money transfer system, or the IBAN system, similar. Two different systems, but similar. And that's what they're setting up. So they can do these transactions amongst themselves. That makes the sanctions that America dishes out diminished in value by half, let's say. So they're going to be still NATO, and a lot of countries are going to listen to the sanctions, but a lot of countries aren't. Let's get a list of those ready, and we go through who's joining. There's a lot of renegade type nations. I'll read them to you. When you hear this list of nations, you'll realize how they very well can form a NATO-type organization in BRICS. Now I had a list of the nations. Now I gotta scroll on the same page and see if they deleted the list. I think it's some of these sites are so deceitful. They have the list. This is unbelievable. They're concealing where they put the list, or maybe this is it. No, they're just, what kind of web page should I go to? It's terrible. The partial list I'm seeing is Algeria, which is not a nice place. Argentina, which I don't think is a bad one. Bahrain, they're not so nice. Bangladesh, poverty. Egypt, problem. So far, Algeria's Muslim, Bahrain's Muslim, and Egypt is Muslim. Ethiopia, Indonesia, Muslim majority. Iran, Muslim majority. No. Let me look for another site. This site is just a piece of junk. Having a terrible time. Let's go to another search engine. Google is becoming such a junky engine. Try Bing. got the same piece of crap website up there. I'm not going to click on that and get suckered in. This place might actually have a list of the sites. Okay, the countries that are ready to join BRICS are Afghanistan. That's the Taliban. That's a very, very bad country. Definitely would attack America. Algeria, yes, attack America. Argentina, I wouldn't think so quick, but who knows. Bahrain, Muslim majority, would attack America. Bangladesh, I don't know. Belarus, yeah, would attack America. Egypt, yeah. Indonesia, Muslim majority. Egypt, Muslim majority, they would attack America. Iran, definitely attack America. Kazakhstan, sure. Mexico, without a doubt. It's now, who else is going to knock the walls down of America? The walls are between Mexico and America. They don't have any other walls. So Mexico for sure. Nicaragua, no doubt. Nigeria, no doubt. Pakistan, no doubt. Saudi Arabia, I guess so. Senegal, don't have any knowledge. Sudan, oh yeah. Syria, yeah. United Arab Emirates, yeah. Thailand, that'll be a surprise. A lot of expats over there are going to have to get out of there quick if it happens. Tunisia, Muslim majority, they'll attack. Turkey, oh yeah. Uruguay, that would be a surprise, you never know. Venezuela would attack. Zimbabwe, that's the old Rhodesia, they're busted up and broke. I don't know, I think they're just going in for the money. So, do you have any trouble believing that these countries would attack America? I don't. There's a couple in there like Uruguay and Argentina that don't fit. India doesn't fit either, but we don't know what Modi's trying to do. In my book, Modi's not real smart, okay? And makes mistakes. And he's trying very hard to walk on both sides of the street. And it's not going to work. Well, I believe they've called it the BRICS plural country now. So we have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and S for South Africa. So they're counting them in there. So what it's looking like to me, and it may never be this way, it could change, but it looks like to me that they're going to form this thing with trading dollars back in gold, whatever scheme scenario they set up to hold the gold somewhere in some way, shape, or form. And they're going to start conducting commerce amongst themselves. And they're going to bypass the sanctions to not a complete extent, but a good extent. Okay? And that's going to prevent it's going to remove the threat of American sanctions. They're not going to be very significant of impact anymore. And as this thing grows, you'll have the 19 plus 5 countries, 24. You probably pick up another 10 or 12 real quick. And then the sanctions are not going to be highly relevant at all. They'll pick up South American. This is, I believe, how Central and South America gets into the fight against America and gets into Jeremiah 30:11, the annihilation of the nations, where he scattered the Jews, because all the Jews have been scattered through South and Central America and the Caribbean nations. I've studied all of them have had Jews there. So they'll want to join BRICS because they got crap economies. You know, like Nicaragua's going in. But then you'll see, you know, Peru, Brazil's in there, you know, then you'll see Peru, who else? You see Uruguay's going in there, you know. Venezuela's going in there. So then the other countries around there, Colombia, for instance, Peru, who else? All of them. They'll all start joining. Chile. And then they'll get sucked into the fighting. Because it's not going to start out that China, Russia, and Iran are going to say, well, we're going to form a military like NATO right now. No. They got to give these people in and say, get lost. I'm not going to go fight America. Go fly a kite and fight NATO. What are you, nuts? Leave me alone. Goodbye. I'm going to go back and grow corn and potatoes, you know, or grow coconuts. Go away. Leave me alone. Instead, they got to show them prosperity with this new BRICS gold trading currency. And that's not going to be that hard to do. And then when they show them prosperity and America starts going into economic warfare against them, they're going to say, we need to build a military for ourselves to protect our economic freedom from America. See how it'll work? Is this going to happen this year? I don't think so. It could. But guys, what I see is this end times is dragging out way longer than any of us want it to, and way longer than any of us really think it's going to be, because we're not happy. We're all miserable in varying degrees, okay? We're all got lots of problems, you know, family problems, friend problems, work problems, money problems, health problems, government problems, neighbor problems, all kinds of things. Okay? That's our lot now. And do I think this thing could move and go in the next 6 months? I wouldn't expect it. It could. It's being, he won't tell me when it's going to go down. I keep asking the Lord, he doesn't tell me. So, it could come boom like that out of nowhere. It may not be from BRICS. It may be from something else. It may be the Ukraine-Russia war, or completely unrelated. I don't know. It could be something completely different. And it happens really fast, and then it goes. Or it could just keep dragging on. Do I think this could drag on for 3 or 4 years? You bet. Do I think it's likely to do that? I really don't. But could it? Yeah. Years. Why? We don't have all the birth pangs. Great earthquakes in diverse places, famines, pestilence. Not there. Not there. Great signs in the heavens, making people fearful. They're not there. Does that mean that life will probably become more miserable as we go on? I would expect that completely. I would give that a 9.999 on the 10 scale. Really. There's a testing going on. I don't know the precise details of Hosea 6:1 and 2. I don't know exactly when it started, and I don't know when exactly it's over. I don't. Did it start really when they killed Yeshua? I don't think so. I think it started in 63 AD, but it could have started in 70 AD. Guys, I don't know. We're not told with any great precision. We're not given a sign to show us when it'll happen. You know, these stones shall be thrown down. You know, all these stones shall be thrown down, meaning, you know, the whole temple area is going to be destroyed. Well, that was the sign of 70 AD. It wasn't the sign of Hosea 6:1 and 2, or was it? I don't know. So we're lacking information to make precision decisions as to, are we in the year of redemption, a year of recompenses right now? I don't know. I can't say that we are or not. Do I think we're going to go into war soon? Yes. Oh, yes. That I believe. No matter how America felt about it, this BRICS gold trading currency is a real black flag for America. Dark, ominous doom thing. And they could knock Russia out of the box, and they'll move on Iran. Moving on Syria, which America is clearly doing now when they say we want to get rid of Bashar Assad, moving on Syria is moving on Russia. Why? Russia has a Navy base in the Mediterranean. There are only Navy base in the Mediterranean, in Latakia, Syria, with an air base nearby. Okay? And they don't want Russia having a base like that in the Mediterranean. So if you get rid of Bashar Assad, the new regime politely asks Russia to move their ships away, and Russia moves their ships away, and that's over with peacefully. The other alternative would be to give something to Israel and have Israel blow the Russian ships and the aircraft up, which is a radical move that Israel may or may not want to do. So in the middle of this fracas, Israel is, Netanyahu, the curse of Israel, is going over to China to talk to China about something. And what do you think he was going over there to talk about? Joining BRICS. He can't readily go to Russia because he's just gave 200 tanks to Ukraine. So Russia's ticked off. So he's going to China to get China to approve Israel going in to BRICS. Before that happens, Netanyahu is going to want to learn from China how the gold is going to be kept, stored, and utilized to back the currency. Because when it comes to money, that's Netanyahu's God. He's not going to go ahead and put money involved in China or Russia. Forget that. If he's got to sit there and pledge that I have a separate vault and I put, 3,000 metric tons of gold there to back the currency that I'm using, that he'll do it, as long as it stays in Israel. And I think that's how they'll structure it. So Netanyahu can do it, and Biden just keeps busting Netanyahu's back. Get out of the West Bank, be nicer to the Palestinians. He's tired of it. No judicial reform. He's tired of it. So he's using China undoubtedly to get America to change their position about or or he's just seriously going to go into BRICS. Why would Israel benefit from BRICS? Because it would give them a chance to sell weapons to these countries. But how, you see, this is the problem with BRICS. It's stupid. Iran is in there, China's in there, India's in there. These people don't get along. Yet they're all in there. So maybe Netanyahu thinks he could be in there with China. So it opens up a market for Israel to sell weapons to these people and get BRICS dollars back for the weapons. That's a big export from Israel, is weapons. And all these countries want to buy weapons from Israel. UAE and Saudi Arabia would buy billions and billions of dollars from us if we got in this thing. Algeria would buy, lots of countries. And then America wouldn't be able to say anything. So basically, does Netanyahu give a hoot about the Jews living around the world? Absolutely, he could care less. Believe me, personally, this guy, by his actions, can care less. He is definitely anti-Bible, anti-Jehovah, anti-seeing prophecy fulfilled. None of that. He's interested in money and power. So he's seeing that he has a lost cause with America. Now, when Trump was in office, it worked differently. But he's sitting there scratching his head. Well, I can't count on Trump. Trump may not win the election for any one of a million reasons, some of which he's being criminally prosecuted in 2 jurisdictions, the feds in New York State or New York City, I think. So, well, what is he going to do that for? I mean, he's being criminally prosecuted. He's like Trump, so maybe he would like Trump, but, you know, Trump's not, you know, something he's going to count on. Biden is his enemy. And the left-wingers in America are never going to side with Israel. So he's thinking, he goes into Britain. He has to make adjustments. Like, you know, no more weapons to Ukraine. What does he care? So I won't give any weapons to Ukraine. You think he'd lose any sleep over that? It would be a decision that he would make in 2 or 3 seconds and never regret it. He didn't care. He doesn't care. He's just probably doing it because of pressure from Biden. So fine, Russia, no more weapons in there. And, you know, then he probably figures if he gets in there, he may be able to calm the situation down with Syria and Hezbollah by getting Iran to back off of that. So I think that's why he's going to talk to China. He's not going to go talk to India because India doesn't have the clout, and Modi is nuts. I mean, Modi's not a good leader. He doesn't know where he's going. He wants to be everybody's friend and, you know, give him some missiles to test, and then he'll say he doesn't want to buy them, and then 6 months later you found out he copied the technology and made them himself, and things like this. This is what you could expect from Modi. So Modi's like nobody's friend. And that's why Biden's trying to pull him into NATO, because he knows that Modi's nobody's real friend. And why is he trying to pull them into NATO? Because Biden knows that this is the beginning of the BRICS NATO. It starts with the money. And then when they all get a taste of the money and the freedom of the sanctions and being able to do what they want without worrying about Biden, what is what they want? Well, they'll start setting up anonymous banks again. They're just afraid to do it because they get cut off from the SWIFT system if we do it. But they'll go back to doing it. Who in there is big enough to attract money for banking? China, Russia, probably Saudi Arabia, UAE probably, and a few others. Argentina possibly. And what are they going to set up? They're going to go back to what it was in the 60s and 70s. They're numbered bank accounts where you walk in and you say, I want to open up a bank account. What type of account? Numbered. What currency? Well, I'd like a multi-currency account. Okay. And how much is your opening deposit? They give you, they assign a number to you for an account name. It's probably an 8 or 10 digit number that you got to memorize, right? And they give you you make up a serious password, and they have authenticators, a little thing that looks like a USB thing you plug in your computer, and you press it and it generates a password that is good for a few minutes. Usually it's 4 or 5 digits, and it only works for a couple of minutes. Somehow they have that working, I don't know how. And you put that in there, and that's it. So they call it a fob or a toggle or something. And they're pretty bulletproof in terms of hackers getting in, need to pretty much have that device. And then if they have that device by itself, like somebody steals it out of your house, it doesn't do them any good because then they need the password. And they can't try guessing at the password. Maybe they could get away with 5 or 10 guesses, probably about 5. And then after that, it's going to lock the account up, and you're going to get a email from the bank, or they'll do nothing and wait till you contact them, and then they're going to want you to get on like a conference call with them on their system and show them your passport and show them bank statements, and they're going to, look at your face and facial recognition to you, and then they'll let you in your account again. This is what goes on. And so anyway, you'll have a numbered account, which is untraceable. The bank itself doesn't know who you are. You could sometimes open these things up online. The bank does not know who you are. Now, the SWIFT system won't transmit to numbered accounts. It won't do it. The other way they did it is they had anonymous bearer share corporations. So you actually had bearer shares. So if you had the shares, you own the corporation. The problem with the bearer share corporations is they print artificial, counterfeit shares. They're flaky. Guys don't like that. The numbered bank account works good. Bank secrecy could work too. How does that work? You give the bank your passport or whatever identity card they want, and you open up a bank account in one of these countries, and then what? you could send money in and out of the account. But let's say your name is John uh, Bruce Wanamaker. So you could open it up in the name of J.B. Wanamaker. How are they going to know who the heck that is? They're not going to have your social security. You know, the bank's not going to release any information. Okay? Are you going to be able to wire money from a Swift bank account into one of those BRIC banks? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. So who would take advantage of this? Drug traffickers, smugglers, criminals of all sorts, journalists, hackers, robbers, thieves, you know. They'll all be using these banks. So they're going to just go right back to the old banking system, which is privacy. And the way that operated is your money is your money. And Russia and China know that, and they'll do that to cater to people to get them to put their money in there. And they'll try to have a gold-backed currency at that time, which is going to cause many, many people to want to open accounts with them and run out of the American banks. But America is going to retaliate. How America is going to retaliate, I don't know. But I think you could take to the bank that they're not going to start a gold-backed currency or a silver-backed currency. That I don't think they will, anyway. Maybe they will, I don't know. But they might get the NATO countries and start an alternative system. I don't know. I don't know. But we have to watch how it develops. And this thing's going down next month, August 2023. It's going to start. I mean, so Biden is going to start suffering. And are they going to admit all these other nations that are applying to get in? I don't know, probably. What do they got to lose? They'll probably wind up with 50 nations, 60 nations. It's substantial. Then to protect it, they're going to start a NATO. And Iran already started a naval NATO for the Persian Gulf with 8 countries, India included. So India is dedicating naval vessel or vessels to Iran, who's the head of it in the Persian Gulf. So India apparently is going to be fighting against America. And possibly Israel. I don't see anything specific about Israel, but India's going rogue. They're probably very frustrated and sick and tired of American policies too. So let me check the chat. I left out trajectory vis-a-vis artillery. Not sure what the difference between trajectory are. Well, I think I told you they have to shoot artillery like this. So anyway, they do have cluster bombs that you could drop out of airplanes. I understand that too exists. Oh, I got a comment that the wind is not always significant to some artillery rounds. I didn't know that. They say North Korea has rocket-propelled artillery that goes 40 miles. Now, they don't necessarily tell you how accurate that stuff is. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's probably not got to be very accurate because they intend to use it against South Korea and decimate South Korea. So, you know, when you look back at World War II, fighting started in '39 and America got in at the end of, what was it, 40, let me check. I can't remember if Pearl Harbor was 41 or 42. I'll check. It was 41. Yeah, okay. So you had, 39, 40, 40, it was December 7th. We had 3 years of the world going nuts before America joined in. So, all we got right now, really, in the most part, is Iran behaving like idiots, and other countries behaving like idiots, and Russia and Ukraine really fighting. And there's no other real substantial big fighting wars yet. So, in terms of the democracy going kaput in Israel, this could be before the big war, okay? Where the democracy is gone, Ezekiel 34 is realized, the two witnesses are running Israel as judges, and they have the temple, and the World War may still not be going on. Okay, so that can happen. So what's the good news there? When you look at Zechariah 12, it's basically saying Jerusalem is full of believers. So there could be a period of time before the war where when the two witnesses open up, run the country as the judges, they're going to open up immigration to all believers, obviously. I would think, why would they not? Because all believers are in Israel. So they would open it up, and a lot of them have collected in Israel, in Jerusalem, because that's where the temple would be. And they want to, be going to the temple, So they're living in Jerusalem. That's the only city in the world named after the Lord. Yerushalayim, Yahovah, Yah. It's named after Yehovah. So that's the holy city, although it's not real holy today. So that's your good news. Could be. I think it is. I think it's, when you see it get to Zechariah 12, which is preceding the second Exodus, which is preceding the absolute end of the daughter of Babylon, the two witnesses are running Israel. Apparently they're called the governors in the King James, which is judges. That's the word correctly translated. Isaiah 1 says he'll run Israel with the judges again and the councils, which is the seventh, as he did at the first. And the first were the two prophets, Moses and Aaron, which were operating as judges, and they formed the 70 councils. So it'll be like that again, with the two witnesses as the judges. So that's something that I think has to pretty much happen pretty quick. Because I do not think the Lord's going to let us have a dictator like Netanyahu along with the ultra-Orthodox, and they're going to eventually start a persecution on believers in Israel. And I don't think that's coming. I don't see that in the scripture. I don't see it indicated. I don't see any reason for this at all. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think so. It could. Or he could just become like a dictator, and so far he's not going to be that much like a dictator. Stopping the Supreme Court on the reasonableness isn't going to stop the Supreme Court from saying, you can't do this because it violates this and that basic law. That could still happen. What he wants to do is he wants to get a law through that basically says, if they pass a law and the Supreme Court rules it to be unenforceable for any reason, all they have to do is go back in the Knesset and vote on it again. And if they vote on it again and get a simple majority, it becomes law, irrespective of anything the Supreme Court said. Now that bill is not getting pushed through, that's not going anywhere, and it appears that that's not going to happen. So he may never get to being a real dictator. This thing is about bringing that slog R.E.A. Derry back in. That's what the reasonableness is about, to help him keep his coalition together. The latest poll on television yesterday showed Benny Gantz losing slightly to Netanyahu. So the people of Israel, do they really get the leader they deserve? Well, we could say that, I suppose. It's a shame having that happen, but Benny Gantz wasn't doing a vote of no confidence anyway. He was not pulling it off. Now I could say, I don't know why. Maybe he was waiting for Netanyahu to really trip over his shoelaces. But we'll see. We'll see. What are we missing here? Let's see. So I'm talking about the news a lot now because it's getting, pretty critical again. Ben-Gvir is creating a new policy where civilians who shoot terrorists will get to keep their guns. Also, they're not going to be interrogated under caution, which means if you give the wrong answers, you could spend years in jail. So what happens now is if you shoot a terrorist, you get interrogated as if you're a criminal. But not that bad. They do keep your name secret, so it's not released to the media, so you're somewhat immune from vendettas, at least somewhat. And your gun gets confiscated for ballistics and this and that, like as potential evidence or something. And now you just killed a terrorist, you're worried about his friends coming to kill you, and you don't have your gun anymore. People here in Israel don't have gun collections, they have a gun, typically. Okay, so Ben-Gvir is going to stop that. The reservists in the military rallied last night out of the defense minister's home, Gallant, hoping he would stop Netanyahu. Gallant is never stopping Netanyahu again or anything. The Israeli planning head, who's probably in the ultra-Orthodox, is pushing for sukkah, it's Sukkot. In Yiddish, it's sukkah. No, you build the sukkah. It's Sukkot in Hebrew. But anyway, Sukkot, the holiday Sukkot, where Feast of Tabernacles, where they build what's called the sukkah. You build it so you can see the stars through the roof. You put agricultural stuff on it, you can see the stars, and you live in it on Mount Zion, where the temple is on that hill, and you spend a week there. That's the way the holiday is supposed to be fulfilled. Well, they don't do it that way, and they, of course, the Talmudic rabbis have perverted it. And the ultra-Orthodox live in apartments that have a balcony that's a sukkah. It's a regular balcony, but it has, instead of just having, a little fence that comes up to here made out of glass or something, it has, pillars and a place you can put the agricultural plants up there. You can see the stars, and they sleep on the balcony. So if you got 3 kids and 2 adults or 4 kids, you'd have to have a rather substantial balconies, which these are generally not substantial balconies. That allows them to use the shower, the bathroom, get water, telephone, the electricity, and they might prepare food out on the balcony, or they might not. They might eat there, you know. So they want to have every building that goes up have the sukkah balcony in it. It doesn't meet the test of the law at all, because it's supposed to be, you go to Jerusalem and put it on the mountain where the temple is, but, you know, okay, this is the ultra-Orthodox flexing their muscles. The riots in Switzerland have spread to Zurich, Switzerland, and they did something to a passenger train, and it's also spreading to Germany. Last night we had a terrorist infiltrator down by Gaza, I believe. Biden says, I don't think Ukraine is ready to join NATO. See, there you go. The day that Ukraine joins NATO, they're at war with Russia, and that's why Biden doesn't want a war. What's he going to gain? Nothing. What does he want a war for? NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg remarks, we will create a council for Ukraine and NATO, and I expect that Ukraine will eventually become a member of the alliance. This is probably what Biden was talking about. The Allies pledged to provide Ukraine with 500 million euros for basic needs, such as fuel and medicine. I call on allies to increase defense spending by 2% of GDP annually. NATO leaders on July 11th to 12th in Vilnius will approve a multi-year support package for Ukraine that will bring it closer to the alliance. This is what Biden is talking about. So they're not going to just pop Ukraine in because they don't want to have an immediate war with Russia. Blinken says we'll continue to hold Russia accountable for its violation of international law. Yeah, but he goes in and puts planes in Syria when Syria doesn't want him there. Doesn't that violate international law? Oh, not for him. He's the DOB. They had an active shooter in Queens, New York, shooting pedestrians yesterday. That was sick. So the Wagner people entered into Belarus, the mercenaries. That's disturbing Europe. The Chinese are in Russian-occupied Ukraine, by the way, not in the other parts. The Russian foreign minister saying that there is a situation in Kosovo is getting worse, out of control, and there's a threat to the existence of the Serbian people. So that's another ruler fighting ruler type scenario, I believe. In West Bengal, India, which I believe is a state, 15 people were killed in clashes over the local election. So India's getting into trouble too. The PLA, that's the Chinese People's Liberation Army, are stating that they're mass producing reconnaissance drones. And they're armed with a mortar shell that they can drop on an enemy position from height, and it's probably got a percussive trigger and it would blow up, I guess. Impetus. Panicked Russians are withdrawing billions of rubles from the banks in Russia. The ruble's in a meltdown. It's dropped to its lowest level in 15 months. Well, this withdrawing of cash out of the banks is going to make it worse. Well, that's one reason why they're pushing forward with their new currency. Biden told China's president that his economy, the Chinese guy's economy, depended on Western investment and therefore to be careful. So he's saying he's going to just really cut China off if they do this thing with the BRICS, which is going to happen. They're going to do it. They're going to go through with the BRICS, and then Biden's going to get ready to try to sink the Chinese economy. And that's going to get them very, very mad. After this gold trading dollars, somebody might come out with an actual gold currency. But they got to, the value of the currency is going to change every day with the price of gold. Sometimes it could change by $50 or $100 in a day. So how do you do that? How do you stop people from redeeming? They could buy the dollar at $17.60 an ounce, the gold dollar, and then later that day sell it for $1,800. I don't know what they're going to do. Zelensky calls for a nuclear strike against Russia. Oh my gosh, Zelensky. They really found their puppet with Zelensky, didn't they? Mr. Zelensky. All right, let's check a little bit on the Israeli news real quick. See if we're getting new developments. It's been quiet this morning here. Quiet it is. Yep. Okay. Any questions in the chat? Yep, the tossing works, believe me. All right, Moshe, my wife is Rivka, and please pray for us. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing of our bodies. Pray for our finances. Pray for my wife's new business. It's doing good. Pray for it, please. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole and not run away. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. If something unusual happens, and I have a feeling it's going to, I will be doing live streams unexpectedly, so make sure you're subscribed and you click the notice bell so you get notice. And pray for better videos, and I'm out. Thank you.